All right, diving in today, and we're going deep on this one. We're looking at a really fascinating story from World War II.
Yeah, a story that combines, I think, some really crucial elements, the technology, the tactics, the human element. We're talking about a specific aircraft, this legendary P-47 Thunderbolt.
Spirit of Atlantic City N.J.
Exactly.
And, we're going to be drawing on some really great source material to kind of unpack all this, some firsthand accounts, some historical analysis, a lot to dig into.
And I think, what we're really trying to do here is go beyond just the nuts and bolts of this aircraft, the technical specs.
Mhm.
We want to put it in context, understand its strategic role, the incredible pilot who flew it, and what this all tells us about the air war in World War II.
Yeah, that's right. So, listener, if you're ready for a deep dive into history, buckle up. We're going to take you right into the cockpit, so to speak.
And one thing I want to mention up front, if you're really into the nitty-gritty details of the P-47 Thunderbolt, all the technical stuff, there are some amazing resources out there, dedicated breakdowns of its engine, its armament, all
Well,
that.
yeah, those are like the engineering deep dives. But for us today, we're treating the Spirit of Atlantic City N.J. as this kind of symbol, right? Like a powerful example of what the Thunderbolt was all about, up there in the skies over Europe.
Yeah, it's an icon. And at the heart of this story, there's a real human element. We can't forget about the pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski, one of America's top most famous fighter aces.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that name, you know you're dealing with someone special, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this guy was born in Oil City, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
to Polish immigrant parents. And from a young age, he was just fascinated by aviation. Like, you can picture him, looking up at the sky, dreaming of flying.
And in 1940, he turned that dream into a reality. He joined the Army Air Corps.
Now, what really set Gabreski apart was his just incredible skill in air combat. But it wasn't just skill, it was his attitude, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had this super aggressive approach. He didn't wait for the enemy to come to him. He went looking for them. Like, our sources really highlight that.
That's fascinating. And I guess that mentality, that aggressive style, it really paid off, right?
It definitely did. He ended up with 28 confirmed aerial victories in the European theater, which made him the top American ace in that incredibly challenging theater of the war.
Wow, 28. That's really hard to wrap your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the intensity of the air combat over Europe. It wasn't just about having a good plane. It was about skill, tactics, and a whole lot of courage. And, Gabreski had all of that. But he wasn't just a great pilot, he was also a leader, a real inspiration to the guys he flew with.
Our sources definitely paint a picture of him as this respected figure, a leader. And, in the kind of high pressure environment of aerial combat, that kind of leadership, it's got to be crucial, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think, his leadership really played a part in the success of the 56th Fighter Group, which was the unit he was part of.
Right. So the Spirit of Atlantic City N.J., it wasn't flying solo up there. It was part of the 61st Fighter Squadron.
Exactly. And the 61st was part of this larger, really legendary outfit, the 56th Fighter Group, which had this awesome nickname, Zemke's Wolfpack.
Zemke's Wolfpack. That name, it just sounds like fierce, like a real fighting thing.
Oh, they definitely were. Named after their commander, Colonel Hubert Zemke. And they were one of the most effective, successful units in the entire U.S. Army Air Forces. And their mission, their primary roles, were really key to the whole Allied air strategy.
Okay, so what were they tasked with doing?
Well, mainly two things. One was escorting those huge bomber formations. The bombers were really vulnerable to enemy fighters, so the P-47s would fly alongside them, protect them.
And the other.
Air superiority, that's, basically controlling the skies, making sure the enemy doesn't have free reign up there.
Okay, so how did they go about doing that? I mean, what were their tactics like?
Well, a lot of it came down to using the P-47's strengths. It's a really powerful aircraft, especially at high altitudes.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't the P-47 have some advantage when it came to high altitude combat?
Oh, absolutely. It had this thing called the turbo supercharger, which basically, let's just say, gave the engine a boost at those higher altitudes where the air is thinner. So while other planes might struggle to maintain power and performance up there, the P-47 could still, pack a punch.
Ah, I see. So they were really playing to the Thunderbolt's strengths, operating primarily in the European theater, which was, as we know, a real crucible of air combat.
Yeah, constantly going up against the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. It was a really demanding and dangerous environment.
So you've got the P-47, a powerful aircraft well suited for the European theater. You've got skilled pilots like Gabreski employing aggressive tactics. And you've got the 56th Fighter Group, this highly effective unit, known for its aggressive, its wolf pack mentality. It's not surprising that they were so successful.
No, not at all. By the end of the war, the 56th Fighter Group, they had really cemented their reputation as one of the most accomplished fighter groups of the entire conflict.
Now let's talk about the name, the spirit of Atlantic City N.J. It's so specific, isn't it?
Yeah, and it really captures your imagination. It's not just some generic name. It's a tribute to a specific place.
And our sources tell us that Gabreski himself chose that name. He wanted to honor Atlantic City, New Jersey. But why Atlantic City? What made it so special?
Well, you have to think about what Atlantic City represented at the time. It was this vibrant, bustling city, famous for its boardwalk, its entertainment, a real symbol of American leisure and the good life.
I see. So in the middle of this global conflict, this incredibly serious, life or death situation, he chooses to name his plane after this place that represents what? Fun, relaxation.
Yeah, I think, for Gabreski, maybe it was a reminder of what they were fighting for, a symbol of the life they were trying to protect.
And it also ties into this broader tradition of personalizing aircraft, during the war. We see all this amazing nose art, these unique names that pilots would give their planes. It's almost like they were trying to inject some personality, some humanity into these machines of war.
Yeah, and I think that personalization, it really mattered to the pilots. It was a way to bond with their aircraft, maybe even give it a sense of identity.
So you've got this incredibly skilled pilot flying this powerful aircraft named after this place that represents everything they're fighting for. And it's not just a symbol, it's a reminder of the people back home who are supporting the war effort.
Exactly. Now, the spirit of Atlantic City N.J., it wasn't just for show. This was Gabreski's primary aircraft during a really crucial period of the war.
Yeah, he flew it on a lot of those missions that really solidified his reputation as a top ace.
But then, the story takes a dramatic turn. On July 20th, 1944, after all those successful missions, Gabreski was forced to make a crash landing behind enemy lines.
Oh, wow. What happened?
Mechanical failure. His plane just gave out. And it's a reminder that, even for the best pilots, the most skilled guys, there were always these dangers lurking. It wasn't just enemy fire, it was the machines themselves.
So what happened to Gabreski?
He was captured by the Germans.
And he spent the rest of the war as a prisoner.
That's right. It must have been an incredible transition going from being this fighter ace, this hero in the sky, to being a captive.
And what about the spirit of Atlantic City N.J.?
It was lost. But, even though the plane was gone, it became a symbol, a really powerful one.
Yeah, our sources emphasize that it became this enduring reminder of Gabreski's achievements and also the sacrifices made by everyone in the 56th Fighter Group. It's like this story of courage, resilience, and the human cost of war.
It really is. It speaks to the skill, the bravery, the dedication of all those Allied airmen and the ground crews who worked so hard to keep them flying.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into this story, it's clear that the spirit of Atlantic City N.J. was so much more than just a warplane.
Oh, absolutely. It was a symbol of its pilot, his connection to home, and, the spirit of a nation at war.
If you found this deep dive into the spirit of Atlantic City N.J. interesting, and you want to go even deeper into the history of these aircraft, I definitely encourage you to check out some of the other resources that are out there.
Yeah, there's some great stuff out there. Really in-depth breakdowns of the P-37 Thunderbolt, the P-40 Warhawk, the P-51 Mustang, all those iconic planes.
And those resources can give you a much broader perspective on the technology, the stories behind these incredible machines.
Yeah, they really can.
So, listener, as you go about your day, think about this. In the midst of this huge global conflict, how did these personal touches, these acts of, naming their planes, how did that reflect the human element at the heart of it all? That's something worth considering.
It really is. Food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See you next time.
Until then, keep exploring.
Keep